Medical Report. We have Deborah Tavares chomping at the bit, as she does. She has her own show over at Rents Radio. And periodically we'll have broadcasters from other shows. For example, Chris Geo is on tomorrow here from the Genesis Network. He has his own radio network on Truth Frequency Radio. Deborah's over at Rents Radio. If you go over there to rentsradio.com, you can actually find her show and listen to it. She's a firebrand of truth-telling about smart meters and now about water. And the water issue, I think, is front and center, probably one of the most serious issues on the planet. People don't understand that we have solutions like primary water, which we've talked about in the past with Deborah, but some of the actions by people like our governor here in California are so obscene and so over the top and so predatory in terms of what it's going to do to the public and industry here and the ability to produce food, which is it's sometimes producing up to 90% of certain types of produce during the year to the rest of America. It's pretty devastating, and the cost of food prices is going to go astronomically high. The cost of water is going to become insane. Deborah, tell us the latest breaking news of what Governor Brown is trying to do to the public here. And, of course, they're not facing and talking about primary water. They're doing stupid things like toilet-to-tap water in Orange County. Everything to me is topsy-turvy, and all designed is to tell us that there are no solutions to these problems, when in fact solutions are aplenty, but they want to have total control of the population, and they want to have water hegemony. We have climate modification technologies being foisted on America, so Texas and California in particular are being dehydrated on purpose, just like Sao Paulo, Brazil, the largest city in the southern hemisphere. The predatory activities of globalists controlling world weather systems through geoengineering of the upper atmosphere. This is no joke, and it's not a conspiracy theory. If people disagree, call into the show, 800-259-5791. I'm going to do an intellectual dissection on you. If you do have the bravery to think that you do know more than I do about the technology that they can do to cause modification of weather, please call in. I will make certain that by that time, I'm going to give you an intellectual beating, which you deserve. Now, people say, why would you do that? I thought you were nice, Dr. Deagle. I treat people with great love and respect, and I will die for you out there in public. I love you. But I do not treat stupidity, arrogance, ignorance, or evil with anything more than violence. And that's what you do, Deborah. You treat ignorance and evil and conspiracy realities, not theories, with violence. We have to. We have to stand up and say, no more. We're not going to tolerate this. And when Governor Brown decides to do what you're announcing today, this is pretty scary, isn't it? Tell us the latest breaking news.
Well, yes, Dr. Deagle, thank you so much for having me on. And for everyone that's listening, I run the website stopthecrime.net. We also have toxicsky.org, toxicsky.org. We have a number of YouTubes, and relative to our conversation today, an extremely important YouTube to get out is Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. Last time we spoke, Dr. Bill, on the program, we talked about primary water and why we do not have a water shortage. So for everyone that's listening that may not have caught that show, go to our other website called primarywater.org. Understand the media psyops campaign that is being waged globally to scare all of us into the illusion of scarce water resources, when in fact the Earth is the water planet. We have an abundance of water. Water is a renewable resource. It's very, very important. We must stop allowing trickery because of our lack of understanding how water science works. So we have 2 YouTubes up and out. We need everybody's help to get this out. As you said in your show opener, Dr. Bill, we are in a major global crisis with the illusion of scarce water resources, and we've got to turn this around as soon as possible, because literally millions and millions of people are going to suffer from water stress and death because of decreased water resources, the illusion of it, and the reduced food supply. But 2 YouTubes must listen. Water Crisis Hoax. Water Crisis Hoax. And the companion to that YouTube is Primary Water Explained. Very, very important. Primary Water Explained. When you go to primarywater.org, you can print half-page, 2-sided flyers. Get these flyers out far and wide. It's very important. I'm going to cover a lot of ground right now, Dr. Bill, but right now what was breaking today in California is Governor Brown issued an executive order and calls for a mandatory 25% water reduction. Now, this is nothing absolutely but rationing. We're getting into rationing, just like you mentioned, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Mm-hmm. They are rationing water resources right now. This is a massive media psyops to really push quickly the illusion of scarce water resources. Now, we just came back from a special assignment, Dr. Bill. A team of us went down I-5 between San Francisco and Los Angeles, where the San Joaquin Valley is located. For all of you that have heard, the San Joaquin Valley farmers and ranchers have received zero water allocation for this year from the state and federal government. Their only source of water now are their wells. And that is why we must do all we can to get primary water out so that people understand we have to start looking down for water rather than up. We've sadly been taught that water comes from rain and snowmelt. And actually rain and snowmelt is from primary water that's evaporated as the water forms from hydrogen and oxygen and then surfaces. And we see it surfacing in many, many ways, in certainly geysers and other aspects of water that we see flowing and cascading endlessly, for example, in the Hawaiian Islands, where we just see the water continuously cascade down the tip of a mountain. Primary water is what we know as being oases in the desert. Again, Muammar Gaddafi was able to access primary water. It's called the Great Man-Made River Project. He brought water into Libya, and for free, 70% of the Libyan population had water until NATO and the U.S. went in and blew up the Great Man-Made River Project, which was the eighth wonder.
We talked about that in the first hour.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about that in the first hour with Keisha Rogers, who was a candidate for the Democratic Party Congress back in the 2012 elections. And what you're exposing, Deborah, is one of the greatest crimes against humanity. It shows that the globalists now are in a final mode. I said the gear to cause global omnicide.
Well, that's absolutely true. And what I think everyone needs to understand is what the documents tell us. One of the reasons that water scarcity is now being amped up and is under massive media psyops, psychological warfare against the global population, is because when they convince the people that we have scarce water resources and they reduce food supply adequately, the solution is going to be genetically modified foods. And that is this. We're in a war. We're in a war. And
right.
Before I
right.
get
but
into
remember
that,
the genetically modified foods, of course, make genetically modified people because it causes epigenetic changes not to one or two genes, but hundreds.
Yeah,
so literally human beings will no longer be human.
That's right. Now, when Governor Brown announced today mandatory 25% water reduction, he went on to say there's no end to the statewide drought. And that executive order for the first ever statewide mandatory water reductions. Of course, we know that the weather has been engineered. We know that by the use of weather weapons, we're literally going to be pushed all around the country. We're going to be forced into migrating because of heavy assaults with weaponized weather. We're told this, and I want to discuss this, Dr. Bill. It's
they want to push people into what are called super cities. They've predicted now. These are United Nations documents that say predict
that's right.
that
they're
66
called
cities,
mega cities.
66 cities. Right. There'll be 5 million or larger. 66 mega cities of 5 million or larger will house 85% of the world's population.
That's right.
By 2050.
Exactly right. And what I wanted to point out is what we discover here. And, of course, again, we were distributing information in the San Joaquin Valley to the small farmers and ranchers about primary water. They're literally being tricked to believe they're out of water, and they're literally being forced off their land. They're, of course, not being able.
Making the right decisions is a challenge to
And welcome back, and action with this water catastrophe that's coming. And it's on us right now.
absolutely right, Dr. Bill. I'm looking at several things. First, I'm looking at an article that came out of the San Francisco Chronicle, March the 20th. It says California's drought needs strong action from leadership right now. And it says Governor Brown and the leaders of both parties from the legislature have announced a $1 billion plus plan to combat the worst effects of California's brutal 4-year drought. But the clear limitations of the package, it's not very little, it's got very little new money and even fewer new ideas. And it shows just how hard it's going to be for California leaders to fight the demands of nature. Now, nature, there is no such thing as nature being the reality of this deliberate weaponized weather consequence of a drought in California. So we are being fed two psyops lies in tandem. We're being fed that weaponized weather is not a fact. It is. We're being fed that we have scarce water resources when we do not. The Earth is the water planet. Water is renewables. Again, go to primarywater.org. But I'm going to refer to a article, or I should say a report, that came out in 1978, and it's through the RAND Corporation. That is all part of this globalist water scheme, along with Bechtel. But the report is entitled Efficient Water Use in California, Water Rights, Water Districts, and Water Transfers. Again, this was in 1978. The preface of this report reads as follows. This report is one of many documents and findings of the RAND Corporation study of water use efficiency in California. The study was commissioned by the California State Assembly in the autumn of 1976 and was supported by a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation. Its purpose was to examine current water use efficiency and to suggest ways to improve it. The focus of the study was deliberately set statewide, although particular areas of the states receives attention in some of the reports. It was not designated to solve problems that have drawn recent attention, such as the 1976-77 drought and its groundwater overdraft problems in the San Joaquin Valley. In other words, this report is a statewide report from the RAND Corporation that invented and has pushed out the Delphi technique, DELPHI. Very important to understand what is happening here and understand we are literally being led by a corporate construct. We believe we have elected legislators, we have elected city councils and county board of supervisors, and while they are elected, they sit there every day. In fact, right now, as we're here on this program, Dr. Bill, they're approving policies and signing on to grants and agreeing to contracts that are impoverishing each and every single one of us. And we don't even realize the debt obligation that's exploding under the grants. And this is extremely important to understand. We have a de facto corporate construct. And when I was...
What we have is what's called a... Deborah, here... alliances which violate the idea of public input and pretend through, I call Del-Lie instead of Delphi, Del-Lie techniques, so the public thinks they're getting input or has some control, when in fact it's being handed over to transnational corporations like T. Boone's Pickens, that in the event of setting up, like these wind power generators across the aquifers, he gets aquifer rights while he gets the rights to the land to set up the wind power generators. And the real issue is they want control of all the water rights in North America. And the United Nations, by the way, every nation on Earth except for Rebecca...
We know the turbines are acoustic weapons, and people are getting very sick from those alone. However, I want to jump into... And
scalar weapons for the scale electricity, too. Yeah.
Here in Northern California at the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors meeting. We witnessed the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors meeting on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th of 2015, sign on with Rockefeller and Rothschild on water plans. They agreed to sign on and bring on a corporation entitled Consensus Building Institute, Inc. Consensus Building Institute, Inc. The Sonoma County Board of Supervisors hired this corporation, which is Rockefeller, to bring in consultants to work with all of us here in Sonoma County on water-reducing requirements. All a fraud, all a hoax, backed by Rothschild and Rockefeller, who joined teams in 2012. You can hear this on YouTube.
Right.
It is entitled Sonoma County, Northern California, signs on to the Rockefeller-Rothschild policies. It's only a 12-minute YouTube. It's a must-see. You can find it also. Our YouTube channel is on the homepage of stopthecrime.net, and you can look at some of the more recent YouTubes that we've done as well. Very important to understand what your cities are doing to each and every single one of you right now, every day. They are incorporated. They do not serve you. They've also recently signed on to more Rothschild and Rockefeller policies and programs. They're creating a new banking reality across the country under the guise of voluntary loan programs under PACE, P-A-C-E. We have discovered that PACE is Rothschild and Rockefeller, and there's many subsidiaries to these PACE loans that are being set up under the guise of being voluntary to help you finance your retrofitting to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, again, all based on fraudulent science. But because every structure in the United States is non-compliant, out of compliance with the new green energy codes, the new markets are being created, and these new banking, literally false banking practices are being created on false science. So what we have loans. Your cities are approving them now. You can type in the name of your city, followed by PACE loans, to see if your city or your county has signed you on to the opportunity to voluntarily take a loan when code enforcement knocks on your door and tells you you are out of compliance. You need to retrofit your home. And there are 3 tiers of required retrofitting. The first tier is really going to be expensive for many people. They're going to have to put on solar, cool roofs, replace all appliances, windows in many instances, increase weather stripping, reduce water consumption. In fact, I will tell you, I am now finding that there is quite a bit of water damage when people flush these low flush toilets and the flush doesn't go through completely. The toilet gets backed up. Place.
Stay there. We'll be right back, Deborah, with more.
Attention taxpayers, if you've received a notice from the...
And welcome back. And people need to understand this is not a conspiracy theory. They really are blocking the water. These policies are public. You can actually read documents on them. And that's what you're talking about, Deborah. Also, people need to be very aware that the geoengineering of the weather has 2 aspects. One, they want to create drought, number one, which is why Sao Paulo, Brazil, part of the BRICS nations, are being pummeled by weather modifications to literally bring them to a crisis right now. The largest city in the southern hemisphere, Sao Paulo, Brazil, of 24 million, is in crisis right now. And by the way, California is a year away from major crisis. The snowpack up in the mountains, everything. And of course, it's the NWAPA, North American Water and Power Project, which we talked about in the first hour with Keisha Rogers, was done. If we used primary water, we wouldn't have a problem. Even if you used desalination from the Pacific Ocean and we had proper filters to take out the radiotoxins, we'd be fine. But we aren't. And the reason why it's bad planning, manipulation, and of course they want to depopulate because their ultimate plan is in the next 35 years, they want the population of every country on earth to be in 66 or more cities of 5 million or more, where the massive human population will be squeezed into small cages and micro apartments under total control of globalists with a toxic environment, toxic genetically modified food, forced vaccinations and genetically modified, and of course a total control system of information where you won't have any freedom of thought or religion or anything else. They have created a super religion, a one world religion, and one world economic system where they'll be in total control. You'll be a caged animal, not a human sovereign person. And believe it or not, this is not a theory.
That's absolutely right.
It's a reality. And you have to understand this, people out there. If you disagree with me, by all means, call into the show. And I speak about this as a technical expert. I was one of the initial founding members of Greenpeace, and I got out of it over 40 years ago when I saw them spraying seal pups with red dye, and the seabirds and the orca whales would kill these seal pups because they were sprayed red with dye, and they could see them through the ice. So I was an environmentalist out in the oceans before I went into medicine in 1973. You need to understand, I have been in the shoes of knowing classified information on this, and have read the World Watch Institute, have got the documents from Human Life International about the global control of population by people like the World Health Organization, and they've proven now with the Kenya Medical Doctors Association. This isn't speculation out there. You might think that we're a conspiracy theorist. No, we're a conspiracy realist. And if you disagree with us, we are violently going to intellectually beat you over the head with the facts until you submit. You have to understand, this is not open to a discussion where you think you have a right to an opinion. The word opine means you have facts, logic, or decency that explains that your thesis is correct. We have everything on our side, and you have nothing if you disagree with us. That's the point.
Dr. Bill,
and this is not a minor issue.
Like to direct everyone to the YouTube Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, because there is a document in there. In fact, the entire YouTube is chucked full of documents. Everyone that might be doubting anything at all, you can download the document.
Oh, yeah, and they have to understand that this is the final, what I call the Rubicon for the human race.
That's absolutely
here's
right.
Where we're going. Here's where we're going. Last night I watched the show. Let me finish this. I watched a show on where they have a new chimeric poliovirus for killing solid cancers. We're within 5 to 20 years of solving human aging, where in most diseases like cancer are going to be conquered in the next 5 to 20 years. There's tokamak fusion reactors. The Chinese have said, we're enough of this hiding stuff. They have enough industrial espionage from us. They're going to release technology we've had for 50 years for fusion energy. We had the Russians have known for 60 years about the gold theory about primary oil coming from the earth because it's a nuclear reactor. It's not created by dinosaurs. And primary water has been something that's been known for hundreds of years. And that's what's disturbing about this. When somebody who is a genius, by the way, Mr. Muammar Gaddafi was weird, but he was a genius and he cared and loved his own people, which is why they had the best social state for any Arab country, where they had the highest standard of living, free home loans, free car loans, free education right up to PhD level at engineering and other training. And now it's a devastated tribal warfare state that's completely destroyed, including this water system. Do we want to tolerate this anymore, people? No. No, this is the end of the road for the globalists. And we say, and I say like my ancestor Moses, enough, let my people go, O pharaohs of this world. Let my people go.
Well, Dr. Bill, in the YouTube, again, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, we have some extremely important documents that people can read. One we found out of Israel via Goldman Sachs, and it's entitled Sustainable Growth, Taking a Deep Dive into Water. That YouTube is, again, as I said, just full of resource material and directions where you can find this. But I want to acquaint everyone with a word that I have been hearing at many of the meetings that I attend. And recently we attended the annual American Association for the Advancement of Science in San Jose, California. And I kept hearing the word commodify. And there was a slide, and it was really daunting. The slide said, begin to think of climate as a commodified natural resource. Climate traditionally considered a public good, non-excludable, and consumption of it by one individual shouldn't reduce the amount available to be consumed by another individual. So I looked up the word commodified, and it is a Marxist theory. Human beings can be considered subject to commodification in contexts such as genetic engineering, social engineering, cloning, eugenics, social Darwinism, fascism, mass marketing and employment. And extreme cases of commodification is slavery, when human beings themselves become a commodity to be sold and bought. Similarly, the use of non-human animals, clothing, entertainment, etc., all commodities. What we find now is that every single thing is got value. Everything, the air, the wind, the weather, the climate, the food, everything is going to have an intrinsic value assigned to it, including the commodification of water, where they say the commodification of water refers to the process of transforming water from a public good into a tradable commodity, also known as an economic good. Now, who's economic good? The controllers, those wealthy few. That's the economic good. They go on to say this transformation introduces water into previously unencumbered market forces in the hope of being managed more efficiently as a resource. The commodification of water has increased significantly during the 20th century in parallel with fears over water scarcity and environmental degradation. Now, when I attended this annual American Association...
The real issue here comes from the fact that we are now in a situation where the commodification of human beings, people need to realize this is being done. Human cloning is occurring in China on a large scale outside Beijing.
Absolutely, yeah.
People need to also realize that what's happening is our civilization is on the verge of a major, what I call involution, not an evolution, but an involution to a caste system of genetic and cybernetically enhanced super segment of society. And they've bifurcated the science base for our culture over 100 years ago, which is why predictive programming by people like H.G. Wells and other authors was literally predictively programming the human race into bifurcating into a superculture of the advanced elite that are eventually going to achieve human genetic engineering, which you can see by the Nazis in the 1930s. And now we're at that state here. It's very, very disturbing, isn't it?
Well, it is, and also a word that many people are hearing in their local cities, and certainly we are as well. It's called resilient cities. And when you look at what that means, because many of the cities that I am in call themselves resilient cities. Well, resilient cities, it's very interesting. The definition of resiliency is building resilience is about making people, communities, and systems better prepared to withstand catastrophic events, both natural and man-made. We are being pummeled by intentional weather weapons, and we are to become more resilient.
Exactly. Back in a moment with Deborah. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the NUTRIMEDICAL Report. This very serious concept you want to talk about, Deborah, is important for people to grasp. This is not a airy-fairy concept. It's one that's being forced on municipalities, not just across America, but these policies are global. They're going to envelop the entire world, and the test environment is this Del lie, I call it the Delphi technique, and being used on the people to actually create a crisis out of nothing, not deal with the real science of primary water, and to push us into a situation where they stress the population until many people die, food supplies collapse, we have famine worldwide, and people are forced to migrate from population areas because of massive drought and desertification caused by geoengineering of the climate. It's really dangerous, it's deadly, and it's so evil it's hard for people to conceive that people could be doing this to us, because I call it a trans-dimensional evil. It really is an evil that transcends the evil of even the most evil human person, because it's beyond that.
Well, that's exactly right. And when you look up resilient cities and the definition for resilient cities, again, you find the relationship between Rothschild and Rockefeller. And the working definition that was put forward about a resilient city says this: it is a city that has developed capacities to help absorb future shocks and stresses to its social, economic, and technical systems and infrastructures so as to still be able to maintain essentially the same functions, structures, systems, and identity. Now, I want to tell you what a resilient city really is, again, set up by the Rothschild-Rockefeller groups. It's organized criminal trauma network corporate crimes. intentionally planning the shocks of weaponized weather, such as what is being done in California right now with the drought. But this is really about trauma training to make all of us trauma ready for the intentional shocks that can now be done through technologies. Again, this is trauma training. And we are all being traumatized right now and pushed into a reality that is being completely controlled. Now, some of the aspects of resilient systems include being aware, and they talk about what threats are and the risks that you face, and how vulnerable are you. They go on to say another aspect is being diverse. It implies that a person or a system has a surplus of capacity, such as it can successfully operate under a diverse set of circumstances. Now, when I attended the American Association for Advancement of Science, they said that they would be having citizen scientists in all of the cities that would be using special apps on their iPhones to report the damage and give damage assessment and loss of life and injuries in real time to the new satellites that they're launching among and above all of the cities, and the new sensor and data collection devices that will be everywhere. This is so that they can literally look and check the success of their weaponized weather systems and the shocks that they will be literally creating the trauma effect that is desired.
Yeah,
they talk about being self-regulating.
In other words, they put a bomb vest on Gaia, Mother Earth.
Yeah. Well, they talk about self-regulating, and they say this means elements within a system behave and interact in such a way as to continue functioning to the system's purpose, which means it can deal with situations and interferences without extreme malfunction. So they want all of us to be able to deal with these intentional shocks, literally created through scientific applications, so that we will be able to continue to function under extreme malfunction. And they say catastrophic collapse or cascading disruptions, we need to be self-regulating. They say it's sometimes called islanding. Now, Dr. Bill, this is unbelievable. Listen to this. It's sometimes called islanding or de-networking, a kind of failing safely that ensures failure is discrete and contained. A self-regulating system is more likely to withstand disruption, less likely to exacerbate the effects of a crisis if it fails, and it is more likely to return to function or to be replaced more quickly once the crisis has passed. So self-regulating means that if there's tremendous loss, you're to decouple from that reality, and the rest will go on. In other words, we're going to see such disaster. And they talked about what used to be 100-year storm events, for example, as being annual events, and now increasillly even less than 1 year.
Let me give some science.
We have a YouTube up. It's called KILL, K-I-L-L, Arc Storm. We filmed the NOAA presentation on the intention of creating massive earthquakes, massive flooding, and it talks specifically about California and the types of devastation to the economy that would occur. Much of what would be not recoverable. Again, that's called KILL, ARC, A-R-K, Storm, S-T-O-R-M. Check that out on YouTube. It is an unbelievable exposure of the types of weapons that are going to be used. They say the next need for us to survive these shocks is we have to be integrated. And they say being integrated means that individuals and groups and organizations and other entities have the ability to bring together their thoughts and elements into a cohesive solution and action. The final aspect...
It means total control is what it means.
Yes, absolutely. The final aspect is being adaptive, The final defining characteristic, they say, of resilience is being adaptive, the capacity to adjust to changing circumstances during a disruption or developing new plans, taking new actions, or modifying behaviors so that you're better able to withstand and recover from a disruption, particularly when it's not possible or wise to go back to the way things were before. Adaptability also suggests flexibility, the ability to apply existing resources to new purposes, or for one thing to take on multiple roles. So in other words, if we are not adaptive, that means we're not flexible, and we will fail the shock test that we are literally going to be.
It's designed for failure. It's like making a test up so not all your class fails.
That's exactly right.
Here's the science. First off, not fixing Fukushima is one of the shocks, because the plasma physics affecting deep trenches creates a change in plasma physics, so you create superstorms, which are like the day after tomorrow storms, and those are going to become more frequent. Also, the loss of the loop current because of the Macondo drilling. That loop current has not come back because they're still using Corexit. There's still oil leaking from the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico at the Macondo, which means the devil's food. That's the actual Haitian word for it. Macondo means the devil's food drill site. And people should understand what's going on here. The globalists are Satanists. They want to bring satanic omnicide to the planet. And they believe that now it's time for them to bring forth their Lord that'll take over control of the millennium under satanic, global, absolute, complete control freak satanic rule. They want to reduce most of the population of Earth 90%, and they want to replace the underclass of humans with cybernetically enhanced, genetically grown, cloned human beings that are basically androgynous, neither male nor female. That's their goal. Their goal is to have a complete control society where the upper castes will be genetically and cybernetically enhanced like Gattaca, and they believe that they will create what's called an order on Earth through basically a satanic order of the God of forces, as it says in the Bible. And they're using all the dialectic of lies, deception, murder, omnicide, destroying the ecosystem, all to maintain absolute control and to be certain that this planet is firmly under the control of our global overlords. People say, that can't be. It is. It's just one of those is things. And they have to understand that our planet's been constantly invaded and controlled from time immemorial. It's all through the Bible. The reality is finally culminating now in our day and age at the end of the secular age of humanity. We either conquer this or we are conquered, and most of the people listening to this program, most of the people alive today, will soon be swept away as dust.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bill, for having me on the program. Again, go to stopthecrime.net, everyone.
Absolutely amazing. Stopthecrime.net and toxicsky.net as well.
And primarywater.org.
Absolutely. Thank you.